Next up is Jordan Bate. Jordan is currently a foster parent and soon to be an adoptive mom. Her story is about raising children, more specifically teens. So I'm sure a lot of us know that particular joy. Now, please welcome Jordan to the stage with her story, Hard is Not the Same as Bad.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to share our story. And heads up, there is no way I'm going to make it through this without crying, especially after already crying listening to Mikey's. So if my voice shakes, it's my tears of mostly happiness. People often ask how my husband and I became foster parents to a teenager. As a little girl, I remember learning about adoption and being intrigued by the idea that people could take care of children who needed families. That thought never really left me. At different points in my life, I pictured myself being a mom to 4 kids, 2 adopted and 2 biological. When I met my husband, Seb, I asked on our first date if he wanted to have children. He said that he thought he did, but he didn't necessarily feel the need or desire to have biological children. I was intrigued again. 8 years later, after getting married and a lot of soul searching, conversations, and couples therapy, thinking about whether, when, and how to expand our family, we decided that becoming foster parents was the path to parenting that we both wanted. We never tried to conceive. As I often tell our daughter, foster parenting was our first choice. But let me say, we had no illusions about how hard being foster parents would be, particularly to older children, which is who we decided we would focus on. And to be honest, it's been every bit as hard as we imagined. But as a friend of mine says, hard is not the same as bad. That reminder carried us through the early months when we didn't have older children right away. The first child we cared for was 18 months old, and he came just for the weekend. 2 weeks later, he was still with us, and he returned several times for respite care with his siblings. After that, the pace of things was unpredictable. Some weeks, we didn't get a single call from our home finder. Other weeks, we got calls daily. We said yes several times, but those children were placed elsewhere. We also said no for the first time, and our home finder reminded us your no's are as important as your yeses. These experiences, the waiting, the uncertainty, the quick hellos and goodbyes, they were all hard and preparing us in many ways, and not at all, for what was to come. On November 9th, 2023, we got a call. Our home finder told us she had a teenager who she thought might be a good fit. Her name is Pingle, she's told us. I let my daughter choose her pseudonym for this story. Pingle is not her real name. She's turning 15 in 2 weeks. She's absolutely beautiful, but she has a very goth style. Heavy eyeliner, fishnet stockings under her shorts, and she listens to metal music. She's smart, reflective, and an amazing artist. It was the fastest yes that Seb and I had given. This was the picture we'd carried in our minds. Being there for a teenager who needed people willing to understand and accept her, encourage her self-expression, give her support and opportunities, and believe in her. I asked what kind of pizza she liked. I put out fresh towels and made a little welcome sign for her room. A few hours later, she arrived. Pingle's favorite part of this story is that Seb came out to the street in bare feet to help her carry in her things. What struck me most was how small and young she seemed. Her curly hair hung in her face. She apologized for not being comfortable making eye contact. I wasn't entirely comfortable either, nervous and excited all at once. But like most, if not all parents, I loved her immediately. After the caseworker left, we asked Pingle what she wanted to do. She said, I think we should eat dinner together and get to know each other. At the table, she took off her oversized sweatshirt, revealing a Rob Zombie t-shirt. Cool t-shirt, Seb said. Not only is Seb a Rob Zombie fan himself, but the year before we had gone dressed as Rob Zombie and his wife, Sherry Moon Zombie. for Halloween. It felt meant to be. And if that wasn't enough of a sign, the next morning, Pingle and Seb both came out wearing Black Sabbath t-shirts. For the non-metal fans, I hear there are people laughing, so some people understand what they should be picturing. Black Sabbath was Ozzy Osbourne's band, and Ozzy Osbourne was known as the Prince of Darkness. So I imagine that people walking past us in the American Dream Mall that day wondered how I, a 40-year-old Taylor Swift fan, saw the movie this past weekend, fit into this picture. But I loved it. This was even better than I'd imagined. Now, they say there's a honeymoon in foster care, a honeymoon phase in foster care. Usually that refers to the child being on their best behavior and then slowly letting down their walls once they feel safe. But in our family, the honeymoon phase applied to me also. At first, I was the kind of parent I had hoped to be. I was calm and steady when boundaries were tested, warm and supportive, understanding of big emotions and the need for space, and I didn't take things personally. Pingle opened up to me. I cherished our drives to and from school, or evenings when she'd sit on our bed and play with the dogs, quiet moments when she would share snippets of what was on her mind. I felt so privileged to be trusted. It's difficult to put words to the end of our honeymoon phase, but let's just say it wasn't pretty. One afternoon, after an orthodontist appointment where there was a heavy dose of teenage attitude, we got into the car and Pingle went to turn on her music. And I said, no, we're listening to mine. She argued, and I blasted Taylor Swift. She reached over and turned it down. I lost it. I snatched her phone off the console between us. If she wasn't respecting me, I told myself she wouldn't have access to this privilege that I'm giving her. Pro parenting tip. Snatching away a teen's cell phone is not the way to go. I have not snatched her phone again since, but I have tried cutting off the Verizon service and our Wi-Fi a few times. Things got harder and harder from there. A downward spiral of me trying to take control and losing my mind in the process. I was pulled in two directions. Some people said, she just needs clear limits. Others told me she just needs someone to understand, as if I wasn't desperately trying to do both. That's when I found the Coalition's Saturday morning support group. At 8:30 a.m. once a week, they became my life preserver in the choppy waters of foster care. In the moments when I felt like a failure, questioning whether I was even parenting at all, Chester and Danielle reminded me, what makes you a parent is your commitment. That's all parenting is, commitment. I had imagined what commitment would look like: cooking dinner, helping with homework, setting limits, of course, family movie nights, things like that. With older foster youth, you know that so many of their childhood milestones have already passed, and you expect parenting's going to look different. But to give you a sense of how different it looks, Pingle and I have only ever done homework together one time. And we've watched maybe 2 movies all the way through. But there are lots of milestones on the horizon, like learning to drive, she's 16, almost 17, and applying to her first job. There are milestones in this that are unique to foster care, like celebrating her birthday alongside her biological family and telling her the news that we have an adoption date. It happens to be next Thursday, which is why I'm crying so much. Some milestones seem so ordinary, but they're deeply meaningful. Like the time Pingle finally asked to try my pad thai after I'd offered her bites of my dishes hundreds of times. And some milestones are extra special. Like at the end of this summer, when we took Pingle and a friend to see the heavy metal bands Korn and System of a Down. As a teenager, I would have been terrified of a concert like that, imagining the stereotypes of angry rockers with spiked hair and chains and mosh pits. But as the lights flashed and the stadium vibrated with drums, guitars, and screams, I looked over at Pingle, fist in the air, recording on her iPhone, singing at the top of her lungs. I put my hand on Seb's knee and I leaned my head on his shoulder. And in that moment, I felt all of it. the sadness, rage, and loneliness of foster care and foster parenting, but also the community, the resilience, the heart, the advocacy, the justice, and the love. It's hard, but hard is not the same as bad. Thank you.
Oh my God. Beautiful.